And welcome to episode 29 of the Community Trail Running Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Lee. Thank you for joining me once again. So many podcasts out there, and I so appreciate you spending a little bit of your time with me. Today's guest is Dave Cressman of Distance Runwear. The Christmas countdown is on, and the trail running shop has all you need. Also, Dave has all the answers I needed, and the chat was super informative, a lot of fun. Pumped to get there, and we will after just a little bit of housekeeping. Let's do that right now. Housekeeping, are you subscribing to the newsletter? Make sure you are if you aren't already. 2023 is going to bring some excitement and more, and you want to make sure you are staying up to date on everything. While you're there, like everything for me too. I'd really appreciate that. It helps on the algorithms and all that good stuff. The Trail Running Film Festival is still accepting entries. Tickets are going to be going on sale very soon, and it will be beneficial to be a member of the podcast and newsletter as well when that happens. So get over there, sign up. This is the last episode before Christmas, so Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to all of you, wherever in the world you may be, and however you may or may not celebrate the season. I wish you the best, and thank you for all of your support this year. It's truly been a pleasure. And speaking of a pleasure, there's an episode coming on Boxing Day as well. When you're sipping your morning coffee or warm beverage of choice, thinking of your adventures for 2023, you're going to want to think about the Sunshine Coast Trail. I've got Ian Jackson on the podcast to chat all about it. He was the first to officially finish the trail in one go, and he's been heavily involved ever since. The chat's fantastic. You'll be planning your visit as soon as you listen. So look out for that on Boxing Day. You'll love hearing from Ian. And funny enough, in another example of how small the trail running world is, Dave Cressman is a great friend of Ian's, and today is about him, his shop, Distance Runwear. Today's guest is Dave Cressman of Distance Runwear. Distance Runwear is a local running shop for me here in Vancouver, BC. They have two locations, one on the North Shore and one in Vancouver proper, and whenever I need anything trail running specific, they're the first shop I think of. Dave, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Adam.
We'll start with a nice easy warm-up. Give us a quick history of Distance Runwear, because you have a partner, you've been around for some time at this point, and you only started with the Main Street Vancouver location.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly evolved, but we started back in 2012, early 2012. So we're creeping up on 11 years. And my wife and I, Meghan, were looking at the retail world. So I'd been in retail, but mostly from the other side. So I was a sales rep for a long time in the outdoor business, in the bike business, backcountry skiing business, that kind of stuff. And I was realizing I was getting a little too old to be the cool guy, that can show up and ski and ride with the best. And so I thought, oh, maybe these companies don't want me anymore, so I better look at something else. And the idea of a retail store came about through a trip that we were on. And we just realized I realized at the time, from a running perspective, every store was the same. And given, my history in specialty retail on the bike side and other places, it was clear that, wow, there's room for all these other brands, so many different brands, particularly in the trail industry that I had been familiar with for years that weren't getting representation in these traditional stores because, I won't say bullying tactics, but the marketing that the big brands offer to these stores tends to mean that there's not a lot of places left on the wall for the small, more unique brands. So that was part of our thinking. The other part of it was from the skill perspective. So one of the challenges that we thought with running was the industry is, particularly the traditional industry, wasn't very interested in helping people run well. And from the bike business in particular, where bike fitting obviously can be a huge change, game changer for someone on their bike. They could have a bike for 20 years and finally go in and get it fitted, and it feels amazing. Yeah, that's sort of how we feel about running, is there is a skill to it. Like every sport, some people have a natural affinity to it and they are already running well. But most people have come to running late in life or reintroduce themselves into running late in life. And they've developed bad habits through other elements of their life. And to simply watch someone run and sell them a shoe to keep them doing what they were doing isn't necessarily always the right choice. So that was a big part of why we approach shoes and products the way we do, and why we tended to lean towards certain products more so than what the traditional market was offering.
I think you've sort of segued into my next question nice and easy for me. You've been around for over 10 years. You're obviously doing something right. There's also a lot of time in there for some interesting lessons along the way. Is there a lesson that you've learned that stands out apart from sticking with feeling that need?
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely learned a lot. And, it's, I guess what we've been lucky with is that we've always looked at it from our own perspective. So we haven't, or very rarely, occasionally, we've probably bit on the big shiny apple of the promise of big sales and trending products that were showing, great popularity and growth. And but in the end, it's never, those things don't drive us to open the store every day. What drives us to open the store is, the person that comes in, they've got a problem, they've got a foot problem, they've got a running related problem, they can't find a waterproof jacket that breathes well enough, whatever the problem might be. And our goal is to have an approach or a product that meets that need. And it leads us to be very specific in the types of things we've brought into the store. As you've noticed when you go in, we have a lot of certain things. So we probably have more trail running vests in our store than any other store. And yet our store is, a third of the size of most other stores. But then we don't have, a lot of the basic things that these other stores might have. And we've sort of picked our battles where we feel there's certain products that are technical enough and diverse enough that we need to have a number of them to satisfy the different needs. Whereas, other products are fairly generic and they don't require a huge selection. So we find a clothing company that we like that makes a great running shirt. That's what we buy. We don't feel the need to have 8 different brands of running shirts that really all perform very similarly, just to have a broad selection of color or style or some fashion element. So that's partly why we've stayed small, is it enables us to, or forces us really, to be very focused on the things we do bring into the store, because we just don't have a lot of space to just display things for the sake of displaying things. We've learned not to try and do something outside of what we're good at, just to sell something.
Well, and that probably speaks to why you've been able to stick around and have such success. So I was going to ask how you do manage to stick around and have success when competition is so fierce and margins are so thin, but I think you've answered that perfectly. I have to say, as a consumer, it's nice to walk into a shop and know that the owner has put some thought into things. And I don't know if curated is the right word, but it's nice to go into some place and know that they've thought more about it than it just being this one's blue and this one's red.
Yeah, and I think curated is kind of the right term, but it's also a little too hip for us. Like we like to think we're really cool and that we could use terms like that. But at the end of the day, it's the stuff. I'm fortunate to have great staff, and we all use the stuff. And if we use it and we like it and it works, we can sell it. And it's not rocket science, right? That's just legit. Like, yeah, this is awesome. I used it this morning and it works and exactly, fits in. And so that's what we do. And so generally speaking, every product in the store probably has at least one of us that's a big fan of it. if not all three of us or four of us in some cases. And that just makes it so much simpler, right? Because we're not just like, oh yeah, this is our max cushion shoe, this is our blue shoe, this is our whatever. We're like, this is the shoe to use when you're doing this, and this is why I use this one when I'm doing this. And so it does lead to that sort of more curated type of merchandising, but not in a pretentious way, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to have the almost the opposite of the Amazon experience, where you just scroll forever and you don't know what you're looking at. You walk into the shop and you can see what you need right away. It's perfect. The trail running world has evolved quite a bit since you started the shop. I'm just wondering what you think about it all, where it's come and where it's headed.
Trail running has evolved from a shoe perspective, but more importantly, just as a culture. Like, it has just blown up. When I was doing ultras in the early days, you could decide on a Friday if you wanted to do an ultra on Sunday.
Right.
And show up and sign up and go. Now you've got to decide 8 months before, and you've got to, run a qualifying race to then enter a lottery to then hope that you've got enough tickets to get in it. So that's, that's not great, right? I mean, it's good for the industry, I guess, but it's not great as a old timer runner that just wants to show up on a race start line and go. You got to plan ahead. But that's led to this, big community. And I think it's proven as a nice way for people to get introduced to running, because it's less about the performance. No one's talking about their times other than maybe some Strava segments, but it's more about getting out. You can run with friends, you can have fun. It's uphills, downhills, flats, technical, not technical, wet, muddy. It's just childlike. And so I think that's been the biggest benefit, is that it's created this big community of people that just want to go out and play in the woods and run trails. And the brands have obviously figured that out. And so there's more product available than there ever was. Everybody's got good trail shoes now, and it's just so much more accessible. So it's that's been huge.
It's easier than ever to spend your money on trail running stuff, which is an easy segue into, this is the last Monday before Christmas. You've got Distance Runwear available in 2 locations. You're online. Tell the people how they can shop with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. We do obviously have a web store, so distancerunwear.com. Ship all over Canada, and everything we've got is available on the web store. And then with the 2 stores, one in Vancouver at 32nd and Main, and the other one in North Vancouver at 1328 Main at Lynn. So they're both on main streets, which has caused some problems, which we didn't anticipate. One of the best was, after a race, 2 ladies decided that they were going to meet at the store, and they're like, okay, great. And so they're going to meet at, the Main Street store, which to most people would be the first one. Usually that's what most people refer to the Vancouver store as the Main Street store, because no one really knows what street that is over in North Van. They just drive along it. Right. And anyway, so they ended up each waiting at one store or the other. And it wasn't until they're like, hey, I'm here, where are you? Hey, I'm here, where are you? That they finally clicked in that they're at different stores. So it's caused a little bit of confusion, but for most people, it's the Vancouver shop, the North Van shop. And we've got lots of great stuff. Just got some new gloves in, and the new watches from Coros, the Apex watch. So that's obviously a big Christmas gift potentially for someone. But online or in the store would be great.
Amazing. Huge thank you to Dave Cressman. Huge thank you to all of you listening. Shout out to race volunteers everywhere. And until next time, I'm Adam Lee, and this is Community Trail Running.